IDing herbaceous plants generally requires certain characteristics, such as flower type, leaf arrangement, and leaf shape. In the winter, the above ground part of the plant is dead and dried, making ID difficult. However, many plants retain dried parts, such as some flower portions, seeds, seed capsules, stems, and branching. These characteristics can help ID the plants even in the wintertime. In front of you are a few dried plants. You can see how different they look. Look at the size of the plant, how robust it is. Look at its growth form and the branching arrangements, and even remnants of the fruit or the inflorescence. All of these characteristics are important when you are doing winter herbaceous plant identification. Leaf arrangement is another thing that you can usually determine fairly simply in the wintertime, even if there are no leaves, because the arrangement of the branches will also be the same as the leaf arrangement. So the plant on our left here, this one here, you can see the two branches, even remnants of the leaves here. So this one would be opposite. The next one also, again, the branching, you can see quite distinctly that the branching is opposite. The ones on our right here, this one actually has remnants of the leaf, but you can also see the branching. So here's one branch coming here, there's another one coming off here, another one coming off here. So this one is alternate, as is the final one here. So one branch starting here, another branch here, another branch here. So that would be alternate arrangement. Winter herbaceous ID guidebooks often ask if there are thorns, barbs, prickles, or spines present. In front of you are two common roadside plants that if you touch, you'll quickly realize that there are thorns. You can easily see the thorns that are along the stem of this teasel, and also on this thistle, both the stem and the leaves have thorns. These are characteristics that can be helpful in winter ID. Now that I've zoomed in, you can better see the thorns that are along the stems and leaves of these plants, and even on the flower parts of the teasel. For many plants, you can see the inflorescence, and this will help you also with ID. So here in this plant here, which is the common mullein, we see a spike. In this plant here, which is an aster, you can see that the inflorescence is in a panicle. And here, a very common plant, Queen Anne's lace, you see that the inflorescence is in an umbel. Also, where the inflorescence is positioned can help you with ID. So in this plant here, you can see how each of these inflorescences are coming off of the axil, where in the summertime there would be leaves, whereas the rest of these are terminal. In this plant here, each one of these are heads which have many flowers in them. So here we have some examples of some flower heads, or what's the remnants of the flower heads. And these two on the right here, black-eyed Susan and purple coneflower. In these cases, the seed is attached directly to the receptacle. So you can see here, this one sort of has a cone-shaped kind of receptacle, and you can see the seeds that are still attached to it. In the middle here, we have two from the mint family. So Virginia Mountain Mint here and bergamot. And these ones actually have dried calyx tubes. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so we can take a better look. And these dried calyx tubes, there's many of them that would be attached to a receptacle, and the seed would have been inside of there. And finally here we have two from the Asteraceae family. This one here is an aster, and this one here is a goldenrod. And the little fluffs that you see here are actually pappus. So if you think of a dandelion flower with the fluffs and then the seed at the bottom, I actually have some examples right here. They're pretty hard to see, but they're little seeds with the pappus attached to it. Here is actually a receptacle where all of the seed has flown away. Some species bear their seeds in capsules, which later open and release the seeds. Here are a few examples in front of you. On the left is a plant that you often see on the sides of the roads or in fields, common milkweed. Its fruit is called a follicle because it has one chamber that splits on one side only. You can see some of the seeds here. On the right, this is common evening primrose. Its capsule has 4 chambers, and you can see how it has divided along 4 seams. Here we have mallow, a garden species that has a nice big fruit where it's easy to see the 5 partitions of the 5 chambers. All species of mallow would have 5 chambers similar to this one. This is blue-eyed grass, a wildflower that has 3 chambers, and you can see the divisions along the 3 seams. Finally, we have hairy beard tongue and its 2 chambers. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see better the divisions of these last 2 species. Here again are the 3 parts of the blue-eyed grass and the 2 chambers of the beard tongue. Here we have 3 different species of the mustard or Brassicaceae family, and what this family has as a fruit is called a silique or a silica. And this is a 2-parted fruit that's divided down the middle by a membrane, and oftentimes it's this membrane that persists in the winter after the outer walls have fallen off. So here is a silique that I've taken apart. So here are the 2 outer walls. Here is that inner membrane, and here are 2 seeds that were in the silique. So just take a closer look at the 3 species that we just saw. So the 2 here on the right, what you see in front of you is that membrane that is in the middle, and the 2 outer walls have broken off. On this one here, this is actually the whole silique here, so both outer walls are here in addition to the seeds on the inside. And between these 2 on the right here, so this one here is Dame's Rocket, this one here would be garlic mustard. You can see that there's a different sort of in the color, with one being darker, and also in the length of those siliques. So that can help you when you need to identify down 2 species. There's a good chance that while walking on a path in a forest somewhere, that you've come away in the end with burs or seeds attached to your clothing. So a bur is defined as a seed or a fruit bearing spines or prickles and usually hooked or barbed. And these, of course, are another identifying characteristic that can be used when doing winter herbaceous plant ID. Here we have the seeds of those same 3 plants, just looking at them a little bit closer. This one here, a tick trefoil. So again, these seeds here will stick to your clothing if you pass closer by. Here is an avens, and these ones actually come off quite easily, the seeds themselves, off of the receptacle here. So this one is on a head. And then, of course, this one, burdock, which the whole burr comes off and sticks to your clothing. We'll just zoom in a little bit on these so that you can actually see the hooked ends of each one of these seeds, which allows them to cling onto your clothing. And this one, of course, it's much harder to see because they're much smaller barbs, but has the same kind of feature. Seeds come in all sizes and shapes, and where they are present can also be a helpful characteristic in identifying winter herbaceous plants. It's likely best to leave the poaceace or grass family ID to the summertime, because generally in the winter there's very few of those important identifying characteristics that are left. So here on the left you can see some dried leaves, probably really difficult even on this at this point to see an auricle or a ligule. Here's the remains of the flower head, so maybe a few glooms left there, but really not much to identify that. The only exception would be the common reed grass, or also known as Phragmites. It's a tall grass. You can see the bushy head there, and often seen grown in ditches along the roadside. So that one is pretty easy to identify, but most of the other species within the grass family can be extremely difficult in the wintertime. Two books that focus on identifying herbaceous plants in the winter are Wildflowers and Winter Weeds by Lauren Brown and Wildflowers in the Winter by Cara Levine. Wildflowers and Winter Weeds is a little bit easier to use, a little bit less technical, but has fewer species. Whereas the Wildflowers in Winter, you would need a little bit more technical expertise, but a little bit more information in identifying plants down to species. But hopefully the features that have been described in this video will help you using either of these books or help you identifying herbaceous plants in the winter.